go ahead and bring folks into the room and we'll get started. Good morning, folks. This is the Colorado Oil and Gas Conservation Commission. It is January 13th, and this is our second meeting of 2021. We will start the meeting with a roll call.
Yes, Mr. Chair. Commissioner Bogue?
Here.
Commissioner Gonzalez?
Here.
Commissioner McGowan?
Here.
Commissioner Mesner?
Here.
Commissioner Nanjapa?
Here.
Commissioner Putnam?
Here.
Commissioner Robbins?
Here.
Mr. Chair, you have 7 out of 7 commissioners present.
Excellent. Good to see everybody. Thanks everybody for attending Zoomonically as we continue into 2021. We have a rather short agenda today. We'll start with a report from the director, and then we have 3 other reports followed by a consent agenda. So we would turn to Director Murphy for her report.
Thank you, Chair. Thank you, Commissioners, and thank you, Coloradans. One thing I would ask is, if Angelica, could you please add Scott Cuthbertson as a panelist, so that I have some weird home stuff going on, so I'm going to be here for a bit, and then I will probably call in on my phone to listen in, but Scott will be standing in my stead. I have a very brief update. First, we're working very hard on implementation. Friday is the day that the rules that you adopted in November go into effect. I'm extremely excited about this event, and we're doing everything we can to make sure that that's a smooth transition, and are working very hard, especially on permit-related forms, and to make sure that we are ready and open for business to accept new permit applications as of Friday. Again, it's just, again, we focused a lot on talking about the permitting side of this, but it also turns on all of the other rules. And so there's a much broader scope of impact than just permits, so that's all I've kind of been updating you on. So it's all great stuff. One other thing I wanted to give you an update on is the extraction docket number 1903-00230 was continued. We received a letter from Commerce City, and that initiated us wanting to make sure that that gets continued to resolve those questions. If you want to talk about those individually, I think I can talk to you, but Kyle will tell me if I can't. But just as a heads up, that's why it will not be heard today. And in my estimation, from my perspective, it allows that docket number will be folded into the new system, and will hopefully ones, which is just can again separately talk individually to you about it. And as we look forward to next year, as commissioners are working on having different roles, we can also think about better or different involvement going forward. So wanted to flag that. And then my last piece is to reintroduce you to Jarrett Ellis, our budget manager, and hand it over to him to give a quick overview of our budget. I'm going to go ahead and steal a tiny bit of his thunder and say that we're in a really good place. We're kind of right about where we wanted to be when we were looking at this budget issue this summer. And so with that, Mr. Ellis, I'll turn it over to you. I'm going to turn my video off, and Mr. Cuthbertson, I'll leave it to you to help us navigate this brave new day. So with that, thank you, commissioners, and thank you, Colorado.
Thank you, Director Murphy, for the report. Mr. Ellis, I believe you're up. Thank you for being with us, and thank you for being with the commission. We look forward to hearing from you.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. It's a pleasure to be here this morning and provide an overview of our budget structure and an update on our current outlook. If you'll bear with me just one moment, I will share my screen with the presentation. Okay, I'd like to begin with a quick overview of OGCC's budget structure. We're primarily funded from 2 sources. the oil and gas conservation levy, which I'll refer to as levy revenue, and distributions from severance taxes, which are collected by the Colorado Department of Revenue. In addition to these two primary sources, we also receive revenue from penalties that we assess on operators for non-compliance and federal funding from our underground injection control program grants and miscellaneous fees, such as those charged for copies of documents. We use those funds for the following purposes. Our program cost budget consists of commission and staff salaries, training, travel, furniture, field equipment, and IT equipment. All of those typical operational costs that it takes to run an agency. The POTS budget includes employee health, life, and dental insurance, employer contributions to para-retirement funds, costs of legal services provided by the Attorney General's office, services provided by OIT, our fleet vehicles, and our leased space. The UIC program budget is for the cost of regulation of Class 2 underground injection wells. Our authority for this program is delegated from the EPA. The plugging and reclaiming orphaned wells budget is for costs associated with the orphaned well program, which is responsible for plugging and reclamation work for orphaned wells and sites. The environmental assistance and complaint resolution budget is used to respond to conditions that may cause adverse impacts on air, water, soil, public health, safety, or wildlife resources. This includes collecting and analyzing samples and assessing the impacts. The emergency response budget is used for the investigation, prevention, monitoring, and mitigation of circumstances calling for immediate OGCC action resulting from oil and gas activities. It's important to note that although this is a small budget, most of the work that we historically funded from this item are now accomplished by the work that our orphan well program performs. Uses of the Special Environmental Protection and Mitigation Studies budget include gas seepage mitigation studies, outcrop monitoring studies, and water quality studies. Finally, the indirect cost assessment budget funds services provided by the Department of Natural Resources Executive Director's Office, such as accounting, human resources, payroll, and other administrative functions. As the note at the bottom of the slide indicates, the budget amounts reflected here are from our current long bill. It's also important to understand that revenues that OGCC collects in excess of the amounts we spend does remain in our fund balance. This is what helps us to weather temporary revenue setbacks caused by market disruptions. So now that we've discussed the sources and the uses of our funds, I'd like to move on to our current budget outlook. Both of our primary revenue sources, levy revenue and severance tax funds, are functions of oil and gas production levels and market prices, with oil being the largest contributor. Due to the geologic structure of oil-bearing formations in Colorado, local production levels are subject to a steep decline curve. Wells produce at their highest rates shortly after completion, with production volumes falling quickly before flattening to a steady rate over time. Because of this, operators have to continue to drill and complete new wells to maintain a given level of production. With current indications from industry, we're currently forecasting a flat or slight decline in production. One key indicator for our production forecasts is the number of fracs operators report. There's about a 2 or 3 month lag between the timing of fracking activities and when production starts, as the operators clean up their wells after fracking and prepare them for production. In August, we observed our lowest number of fracs since we began monitoring, at a level about 10% of the typical monthly pre-pandemic numbers. However, they've been trending up since then, with December numbers back up to almost 85% of pre-pandemic rates. As I mentioned, market prices are the other key driver of our primary revenue sources. We observed unprecedented pricing in the second quarter of 2020, with pricing stabilizing afterward at a rate of around $40 to $45 per barrel. And we're forecasting that prices will remain relatively flat in the coming quarters. With this, we're continuing to monitor our cash flows closely. We're spending conservatively in response to the current market conditions. We continue to track operators' reported production as well as our levy revenue receipts. Due to the effects of the crash in pricing last spring on our revenues, our collected revenue was about $4.2 million below our expenses for the fiscal year ended June 30th, 2020. To help compensate for this, we adjusted our levy revenue effective October 1st. And although we still expect to outspend our earnings again this fiscal year, we do believe that the current levy rate is appropriate. We will continue to watch things closely, including any anticipated need for rate adjustments, but our modeling predicts our fund balance will still be in a good place at the end of this year, meeting internal benchmarks. I look forward to providing another update to you in April. And at this point, I'd like to open it up to any questions that the commission may have.
Thank you, Mr. Alice. I appreciate that report. Looking to commissioners, are there questions? Great, I'm not seeing any questions. I think that is illustrative of the good work here and sort of updating us on where things are. It's nice to see that we're forecasted to be within the benchmarks that we're looking for, and we'll look forward to hearing from you again in April with an update.
Thank you very much. I appreciate your time.
Great. Moving forward with our agenda, we have a COGCC website overview. Ms. Adamczyk, are you with us? Hello.
I am with you now.
Good to see you.
You too. Let's see. I think the best way to do this is I will share my screen and then we can just run through an outline that Commissioner Gonzalez and I put together to help you guys become experts on our webpage.
Excellent. And we'll try to get this, maybe get this PowerPoint loaded on our website so that members of the public can have access to it as well after you're done.
That sounds good. I'm gonna put this up here. Can you all see our website now?
We can.
Okay, perfect. All right, so I'm just gonna do a little intro on myself. I am our complaints specialist, so I do a lot of interacting with our public in the state of Colorado, and by doing that, I have kind of helped people from the public navigate our website. So I've, I guess, become sort of our resident expert on helping people get through the website. And I also do a little bit of our web development, and I guess that makes me the expert at navigating the website. So we kind of have a really great setup on our website where it contains a ton of information, which is really great for our transparency to the public and sharing information, but it does present you know, the drawback that it's a little bit of a bear to navigate because it's got so much in there. So I'll run you guys through and hopefully that'll help us be better at navigating. So our website is divided into the main sections up here that you see, and each of these sections has its own submenu, which will appear in blue. So this menu down here changes depending upon the section you're in, and each section has its own search tab here. So it's kind of the general navigation point. So if we go back to our homepage, kind of the things I want to call out on the homepage here are, you have your news and notices. This is where you can see upcoming items, and what we usually publish here is any items we want to call out, and it will link to other points in the website. Over here on this side, we have our upcoming events. You can see the commission hearings and the operator trainings are the big events coming up right now that'll show up here. And we have a few other quick links here. The daily activity dashboard, we'll look at that later. Our help section, that's full of useful information. We'll also fly over that in a bit. These are our staff tools. The public does not have this view. And we've got a few other links here. We've got the Senate Bill 19181 quick links. This is a link to a general email address for mostly the public can link through here. Operators sometimes use that also. And that is just for any general questions. That is managed by yours truly. And then we also have another little staff calendar and some information for hearings. All right, now we're going to jump into this About Us section. You can see our wonderful director, Julie, right here. And then over here on the side, this bar is really useful. I think it does have some updates that are pending, but this has an overview of each unit at COGCC. If you click in there, you can see what everybody does. So it's kind of a description of what all of our staff does that can be helpful to both you guys and to the public. And another tool that I love in here is, you know, I'll focus on that tool elsewhere actually. So you can look at you guys here. Here is a contact directory of all the staff. This is super helpful. I think this staff area by responsibility. So if you want to know who is the, you know, say environmental person in a certain area, you can look them up here. Don't think you guys are going to be looking for jobs with us, but you know, if you get any questions about applying for jobs with us, that is where it is. All right, our next section we're going to go over really quickly is the complaints area. This is kind of my wheelhouse. This really big link right here provides the functionality for members of the public to interact with us regarding a problem they're having. We provide guidance for them and a tool for them to file a complaint. This is also an area that is getting updated shortly. They also have a link where you can search complaints that puts you over into our data system, and we'll focus on that in depth in a little bit. And a link over here to our partners at CDPHE. All right. This section here, the dashboard, the daily activity dashboard, or the DAD, it is a kind of a high level overview. We'll click right into it here. I think we could probably do an entire training on just the DAD, but we'll just do a quick flyover right now. So I think probably the thing that is most useful is that the DAD allows you to kind of drill down by municipality or county. If we just pop into Adams really quick, you can see on this small map, it'll bring you into, right now we're in the pending permits page. So it'll bring you into pending permits. I think this is really useful if you just really quickly want to find something by area. You can go ahead and click on, if you click on a map point, it'll bring you to the table down here, which shows you the data for the point you clicked on. And if you click a link in there, it'll bring you to all the data for that point. Does that make sense? And the DAD has 9 sections. Probably the one that gets a lot of action is this pending permit section, but you can also click through status, plugged wells, production, inspections, NOAVs, notifications, spills, and operator changes. And in all of these, you'll be oriented by the location up here and get additional information down below. So that was a pretty quick jaunt through there. Does anyone have any questions about the DAD before we move on?
Raise your hand if you have any questions, folks.
No?
Commissioner Nanjapa has a question.
Not a question per se, but I was just wondering if you might be able to zoom in on your screen a little bit. The font is just a little bit small.
Let's see if I can.
To be
Do you
clear.
want to look like down here? There we go. How's this looking? Any better?
That's a little better. Yeah, it may just be that I'm on a smaller screen, so that's okay. Thank you.
Yeah, I think I have it to the fullest extent right now. Oh yeah, it makes the website a little crazy looking. All right, so if there's no more questions on DAD, I'm going to skip over this data tab for now because I think we'll do a little more in-depth view on that one. So we'll run through our government tab next. The government tab contains some links to our local government MOUs. I'm sure those are facing some updates now as well. Then this state item in the submenu leads you down to all the state agencies that we work with, and then any federal agency links that are appropriate. Our next tab is the library. The library is a little bit of a hodgepodge. It is where we store tons and tons of different documents. Probably the only reason you would be accessing this is if someone is pointing you to a document here. Each different area in this submenu does have its own search bar. So if you're looking for something there, that's probably your best bet. The maps is another tab we'll go into in a little more in depth. So I'm going to skip over that for right now. Our media tab is just an archive of press releases and Megan's contact info if you need to get in touch with her. All right, next we'll move on to our permitting tab. There is a lot of information in here, and one thing I just wanted to call out is that most of our sections do have a little help document, and the permitting one is especially robust in the help area. So if you look down here, there's how to use the public comment, how to submit comments, you know, how to search. This is one a lot of people use, how to search the pending permits on the map application. So if you're using anything on this permit page, I would definitely hop over to the help first to see if you can get any guidance on what you're doing. I'll run through a quick search on pending permits. Pretty user-friendly tool here. You can select by county. Do well. So your search results will bring you to this grid. I think the helpful thing to call out here is that the different links in this table are going to bring you to different ways to view this pending permit application. If you click this doc number, that's going to bring you to the public comment portal. If you click on the location name, that's going to bring you to the document. So you can see the submitted Form 2A, the maps, the drawings, you know, all the submitted information. And if you click over here on the footage call link, that will bring you to that 2A on the map. I think a helpful way to, you can either browse through this list to find what you're looking for, or if you just do Control F, you can search for the either name or doc number if you are familiar with it. Does anyone have any questions on this permit search page?
Any questions, folks? Commissioner McGowan?
All right, I have a like in the weeds, maybe stupid question. So the docket number that we see for drilling and spacing units or for pooling, is that the same document that's going to follow this permit? Is everything under the same document number, or does everything have a different document number?
So for each, and this might be a permitting person might be able to answer this better, but if you click on this document number, that would be the document number for the 2A. I'm not sure how that would coordinate with with docket numbers in the hearing
And
portfolio.
under our new rules with kind of one-stop shopping with one OGDP, are we going to be streamlining document numbers, or there will still be kind of separate pieces with different numbers associated with them?
Well, so the 2A has a document number. Oh, you know, I didn't want to click in there. But then in the document storage system, at least on the technical end, each different document has an ID number for housing in this document database, but then you can see they're all coordinated under this document number for the Form 2A. So that's kind of like technical side. As far as like hearings process, that you might need to maybe coordinate with like Mark. She might know the answer to that.
It's all good. It was just for curiosity and how easy it would be to track something through a whole process if it had the same number. So it's all good. Thanks.
All right. Any more questions on this permit searching?
I'm not seeing any. Thank you.
Okay. Then we'll hop over to the SB 19-181 page. This is where we have any information relating to 19-181. This mission change guidance section is getting a lot of activity right now. As we do all of the operator trainings that are twice weekly now, any guidance or presentations that come out of those trainings are getting updated to this table. So you can pop in and access the newest up-to-date information from staff. This table is dynamic, so you can sort by date by clicking on this, the date header, or depending on which form or process you're looking for, you can sort by that. Here we have our question and answer portal, and you can also view all of the questions and answers that people have submitted and staff has answered.
Chair Robbins.
Yes, please.
I would just add, I know the commissioners are all really interested in, you know, getting up to date on the implementation documents that we're generating. This is the best one-stop shop to go to look at what's readily available. This table's being updated 2 or 3 times a day with additional information as we, you know, get closer to Friday. So I would just comment that this was the page that I think Director Murphy identified to you in an email maybe earlier this week or last week about, you know, as you are trying to make sure that you're ready to go, this is the best one-stop shop right now.
Yeah, and these documents are uploaded by the end of the day. When they're presented, they're on their same day. And then for any more information that came up in those industry operations meetings, if you see this link right here, this will bring you to agenda, YouTube recording, and then every other presentation. So it's one of the features of our website is there's often many ways to get to one thing. So this link will bring you to everything too. All right. So I think the next thing we can dive into are the sections that we're kind of going to go a little more in depth into. So if there's any other questions about general navigation or any of those sections we reviewed already, now would be a good time to speak up.
Looking around at my fellow commissioners, I'm not seeing anyone speaking up, so I think you can keep moving.
Okay. So I think the first of our in-depth sections we'll go into is the Cogc Colorado Oil and Gas Information System. This is our database searching tool that allows you to access pretty much any information you need about facilities, samples, productions, any field inspection report you need. You can get all of those here. We'll kind of look at each of these in depth to show you what we got here. So I first clicked on the facility. This is where if you want to look up anything about a location or well, is where you can start. I've selected up here location. You can narrow this down by the county, the facility status. I usually just hop in here with the location ID. I'm gonna just put in one that has been on my radar a lot lately. So you just pick your search field and click submit. It'll bring you to a table of your search results. Because I searched by the facility number, I only had one result. If you put in a search term like the name, you'll probably get a few. If you click on that link for the location, it'll bring you to the scout card for that. You can see all the wells underneath it and you can see their status. You can click on individual wells. And a useful item that's a little hidden up here are these links. If you want to review the links for the documents for that location, you can click on Doc. And you can see here, you can look at the submitted Form 2A. Here's where you can see layout drawings, maps, pictures, any correspondence. And this will also have links to any inspections related to that location. You can also click into just a list of inspections. See if my internet's gonna cooperate with us. So you can click into these inspections. You can also bring up a link to the map. And the COAs. I think we had a question about where to find BMPs for a location, and this is one way to get to them here. All right, do we have any questions on facility searching?
Got a question?
Go ahead.
Commissioner Gonzalez, please.
Thank you. So what are the various search terms that you can search in the facilities field is my first question. And then my second question is, when we are searching for section, township, range, is there any way in which we should be putting in those numbers? Like if it's 6 north, is it 006? Is it 6N? How does that work?
All right, so for the various search terms, you can use the name of the for operator, you can put in their name or their number. You see there's this little hint right here that tells you what you can search for. For the facility or location, you can search by a name, or if you have the facility ID, that is the best way to search a facility. So for searching township, section, range, those fields, you don't have to have any leading zeros. They're not, I don't use those fields very frequently, but you know, you would just do like 6N or 32N. Let me see if I pull up the location we were just looking at, we can run through a quick example. Where did I put it? Put it in the wrong box.
Mr. Demchik, how does one determine what a facility ID is?
So you can find the facility ID in a few ways. I usually, in my process, I'm usually directed to an area kind of by a complainant. And so I would go to the map and narrow down by the area, and then I use the map to identify locations. But you can also use this tool to search by name, and then you can find the location ID if you need to.
Thank you.
Let's see. So you can see how the township, section, range are entered in here, and this would be the format you would want to search by. Does that clarify your question, Commissioner Gonzalez?
Yes, it does. Thank you.
Okay. All right. And so you would follow a similar process if you were wanting to look for any environmental samples. If you would like to look at production data, it's again a very similar search format. Inspections, you can search by the well, you can search by the operator. And this inspection tool is also where you, see it says inspection incident. You can also search for NOAVs here, complaints, spills, remediations, MIPs, and Braden heads. And then if you want to find contact information for any operator, that's where you would use this name, address, and financial assurance tracking search. Again, you can use the name or the operator number. You would probably know the company name unless you have the operator number off the top of your head. And then we also have a tool to search for local governments. So here, say you could put in the county. And you pull up their LGD contact information. All right, do we have any questions on this tool, or does anyone have anything specific they want to see how to search?
I'm not seeing hands go up, so I think you're good to keep going.
Okay. So let's move on to the maps. The map is probably our most powerful tool, but it can be a little tricky to figure out. One of the things to know about our map is there are a ton of help options here. We have a help section here. This is just a general help document for how to use the map. So if, you know, this is a 30-page document, Chris Eisinger, who is the map guru, can do probably a whole day training on how to use the map. We'll do a quick flyover, but this is Chris's contact info. If you ever run into any trouble, he is where you go for help. And then on our map here, there's also additional help over here. So there's an FAQs, there's a help doc about flow lines, and then there is a guide to all the map layers. And again, we've got Chris's help info. So when you're using the map, your first step is probably going to be zooming in to the area that you are looking for. So you can see on this full statewide view of the map, you can just see counties and then a few other features. As you zoom into the map, the layers that are available to you are going to change. So for example, you know, if you look at your wells here on the full scale of the map, it's just way too much information at this scale to display. So yeah, so you can see here like how dense the map is at this scale. So the tools that you start with are tools how to orient you into the map. So this right up here, the zoom tool, this gives you the option to zoom the map based on which data point you have. So you can zoom to a township range, you can zoom to a city, you can zoom to a location number, API. Probably the one I use the most is zooming to a location number. Sounds like the township range tool might be useful for you, but that is a way to automatically zoom to one location on the map. If you prefer to kind of view more manually, right here we have our manual zoom tools. This one that is like a magnifying glass with a square that creates a box that the map zooms to. Oh, Comcast is holding me down today. And this is, it's right up here in the corner of the map. If you see a little, You see these bars that kind of look like they're lit up. That's an indicator that the map is trying to do what you want, but it's going a little slow. So you have this zoom to an area. You also have just a manual plus and minus tool, kind of zoom in, zoom out. And then you can use this, this little hand tool. That's your dragging tool. You want to pull the map around. And your pointing tool is how you select a feature. So any feature that you select, it'll have a fly out, what we call this. And from here, you can click into the scout card. Are you thinking? So you can see, it's not letting me click in there. You can see this is a way to, another way to get to the location information that we used the facility search to get to earlier. Come on. Okay. I don't know what's holding me back today. All right, well, you can click on this and it brings you into the, it'll bring you into the scout card where you can get into all that same information we looked at in the facility search page. For some reason, it's not pulling up for me right now. So let's do a quick zoom to facility and you can see how that works. We're using my same favorite facility from this week. So I'll kind of focus in on that area using that rectangle search. And when you get to the view that you want in geographic terms, that's where you can start turning on all of these layers to show the information that you would like to look at. You can see this is quite a comprehensive list. The first one that shows up is the wells. So you can just see the red spot shows you where there's a well, and then you can add additional information based on what you'd like to look at. So you can see the name of the well, API numbers, operators. You can see the more info you have, it's getting a little cluttered. So you kind of want to be selective about what's important for you to look at. You can also look at the well status based with these little icons, or you can look at the well status with the well status code. Another very useful tool is the aerial imagery. It really gives you kind of more of a picture of what you're looking at. You can see here the map's thinking. You can select aerial imagery based on the date. You can see the most current image we have is 2019. We're currently evaluating some tools that will give us more up-to-date information. You know, aerial imagery that would be updated on a week-by-week basis. So that's hopefully an enhancement we'll be adding at some point. Another tool that can help you to kind of orient yourself in the map is we have a layer of roadways. I know a lot of times you'll kind of have a rough idea of where something is, and you can see where it's oriented to major and local roads. Another tool that has gotten a lot of interest lately is the directionals for a well. See how long it takes for these to show up. Looks like there aren't any. Oh, here they are. So you can see where these well bores are going. And then another way that you can look for those pending permits is by using the permit layer over here. So I'm going to go ahead and zoom out a little bit from this map. So when you're kind of zoomed to the area that you are interested in, you can look for pending 2s and 2As. And again, as we change that process, these layers will surely be updated. Another layer that I find helpful, zoom back in, got a lot of crazy stuff turned on now. Another layer I find helpful is the Cogcc layer right here. If you activate this layer, anything that you mouse over, it will bring you to a contact for that area. So you can see for this area, any technical staff that you need to talk to about this location grouped by their area of expertise. Are there any features that you're interested in searching or interested in seeing that you would like to dive into?
Bill, Commissioner Gonzalez.
Thank you. No, just one quick feature that I think is important when viewing these maps, because when you look at it, there's a ton of wells, there's a ton of data on there, is the well status. Could you walk us through how to turn on the well status and how to identify the various status of the wells that we'd be seeing?
Sure. So there are 2 different ways to view the well status. Let me turn off some stuff that's bogging up our picture. See, I use these maps all the time, and I'm still sometimes struggling through to turn off different layers. So if you're kind of zoomed into this area that you're looking at, that you are interested in, you can, in this well menu right here, you can look at the well status label. So if you check that checkbox, it'll turn it on after it thinks for a minute. So here are the labels right here. So this view uses the alphanumeric label. You also have the option of turning on the well status layer, and that will show you the statuses with an icon. I think this one can be a little hard to look at. I prefer the text one, but this gives you a symbol and a key. If you're using the well status labels that just show you those letters, you might need one of our help resources in the help section here, which is the status codes document. So I got to that by going to the help page, and it is under the codes help section. So is that what you were looking for?
Yes, it was. Thank you.
Okay.
And then another thing that maybe you could highlight for us is the measure tool.
Perfect. Okay. So up here we have where those zoom tools are located, we have a few other tools. There's a measuring bar here with the, it's supposed to look like a little ruler. And that allows you to say, you see, this looks like it might be a house or something, and I'd like to measure to this location. So you click on the measure tool. You'll know it's activated when you see this measure distance side menu over here. You just click on your first point and then click on your second point. And then over here, it'll give you the segment information in different units of measure. Then you can continue on and say, you know, click over here. Thinking again. And it'll continue to give you the segment distances and the totals. You can go ahead and hit clear to start over. And then related to this, there is also, if you see this little buffer tool, this can be helpful. You need to first select the layer that you would like to create a buffer around. So I had a location selected. And then this top menu, you can select the unit of measure and distance that you're interested in creating a buffer. You can kind of drill down into how you'd like to see your buffer displayed with colors and outlines. And then hit OK, and it will create a buffer around. Let me see. So it defaults to showing up as like a red blob around your buffer. And I use this tool a lot of times. I'll have a point on the map. You know, someone's given me an address and they're concerned about locations near their residence. So you can put a point on there and create a buffer around it. And this is probably a good time to bring up that the external version of our website does have a map that's a little bit different. So you can get to the public version of our website. If you're in the home page, you can click this logo and it'll bring you to the external website. So you can see there's no staff tools over here. That's how you know you're external. And then if you click into the map here, you'll see some different tools. Probably the biggest difference here is there's an address search. And this is useful for, you can see what's around my house. This is probably useful for the more, you know, lay person who isn't familiar with searching by, you know, section range or location. It can kind of allow them to orient to what is near their residence. Okay. Are there any more questions on the map or anything else anyone would like to see?
Any other questions, commissioners? This is very helpful. Thank you.
And, you know, Chris is definitely a great resource. If you get stuck anywhere, you can definitely reach out to him and, you know, just explore these layers because there is just so much there that can really help get any information you need. All right. And so our last kind of in-depth section that I want to go over is this regulation page. This thing is chock full. So I think one of the questions that we had submitted was how to get to our YouTube page, which is where all of our operator trainings and hearings are archived. And that is right here in our regulation page. We're in the overview section. And in your quick link right here, it'll pull you through to the YouTube. We'll take a quick minute to look at this. Here's our home page. I think the playlist tab is helpful. You can see if you just want to hear commission hearings or operator meetings, any technical training. And this is, again, it's getting updated day by day as we go through operator training. Here we've replicated the information for upcoming hearings. You can click into the Zoom link and get the agenda. And then you can see here all of our subsections. The subsections are also, for this one page, duplicated down here in a table. Probably the one that is of most interest to this audience is our hearings tab. Again, you know, we've got the hearings information and clicks. You can click into the meeting and the agenda. Here's where your portfolio is housed. It's a link to the Google Drive. And this is where you're gonna get any information that you need leading up to your hearings as you prepare. So you can kind of click through and see all of the, you guys are probably better at using this than I am. Click through to any documents you need. You can also look at any previous hearing documents, and this is a pretty user-friendly menu. So then over here, there's the link to the e-filing system. I am actually not a user in this, so if we need any follow-up questions on that, we'll have to identify some alternate staff for this. But you can search documents, get into your portal. This is where the active and pending matters documents are saved. Looks like these were prior to November 9. And then down here in your hearings information section, there's a lot of resource documents. I think we had some questions about how to request a hearing, and that information we found in this hearings and application process guidebook. We have contacts to external sources. We've got all you guys' bios on there, and our public meeting policy. And we touched on this a little already, our operator guidance page. This provides all of the guidance documents that come out of those trainings. Another link over to that mission change guidance doc. This is information where you can access when the industry operations meetings are. And this is again, the link to all of the past information there. And each of these subsections are going to have a search tool. So we also have our forms guidance page. This obviously is getting ready for updates. It's being edited as we speak. You can click into the form and it can also give you any instruction documents related to that form. We have a page for our Orphaned Well program. This section links out to a Google site. They have a really robust Google site for the Orphaned Well program. Looks like it's thinking. But this allows you to search for any ongoing work, get some stats on this program. You know, they can show you what's in progress. They can show you how much money they're spending by county. I think this page is actually due for an update soon. I think we're going to integrate it into the main website, so it won't be a Google site, but to be determined. We've got the policies section. Again, this is where you can find any notice to operators. It's got a search box for it. We've got our rules and rulemaking section. I think we had a question about where we could find the cross-reference rule index. That's what right here at the top of this section. And this page is not updated with rules until that rule is in effect. So I think this guy's getting an overhaul in 2 days here. So maybe don't ask Chris Eisinger any questions in the next 2 days. And then we have the well integrity page. This one, again, is getting updated right now on my to-do list, so let's not talk about it too much. But this just gives you an overview of what the engineering group is doing and any documents that they want to highlight. Does anyone have any questions about this regulations section?
Questions, folks?
I think the hearing section here is probably where a lot of your resources are. Nothing?
Not seeing any questions. Thank you. You've done an excellent job.
So that is that's the end of my to-do list for reviewing for you. So I am, oh. So, please let me know if there's anything you'd like to dive into a little more.
Great, thank you. Commissioner Gonzalez?
I didn't have anything for further discussion, but I wanted to thank Ms. Adamczyk for putting this together. A really great presentation, really thorough. So thank you. And I think we have time for questions if any commissioners have additional questions or anything to walk through.
And thank you, Commissioner Gonzalez, for assisting in putting this together. Commissioner McGowan, we see you.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. And I'm sorry I keep turning off my video. I have a bad internet connection, so people keep freezing. So I'm hoping that by turning off my video, I can see people and hear people. Are we gonna, I just want to make sure that we're gonna keep the commission hearing portfolio and the links to what will be on the agenda. That's been very helpful for me from a finding everything that's on the agenda in one place and knowing what's going to be considered by the commission. And I know that as we move to the online permitting system, I'm wondering if we're still going to have the hearing portfolios and the documents in the portfolios.
I'm not aware of any plans to change that, but we should definitely, I can follow up with Mark Umecki. She would probably be the one who would be familiar where any of these portfolio items will be staying.
Hearings Manager Amaro, did you have a response on that as well? Again, I don't think there's any plans to change anything, Commissioner McGowan, either. I think it's very helpful.
And I know, we can be very responsive with our web, web development and editing. So if something moves and it was something that was super helpful to you, or, you can't find something, you can always reach out to me or Chris. We can help you find stuff. We can put something back if we broke something, and that's Chris Eisinger.
Great.
Good morning, Chair Robbins. This is Hearing Officer Peskin. I can respond to Commissioner McGowan's question.
Please.
The portfolio as it currently exists, it is probably ultimately going to go away as we transition into the e-filing system, Commissioner, because the e-filing system will contain all of the pertinent documents, the entire record for any particular docket within that one centralized spot, as it were. So I hope that answers your question. The portfolio exists today because we've never had an e-filing system for all of the documents for one particular docket to exist for you guys as commissioners to access them. But going forward, all of that information will be housed within e-filing and accessible by all of you whenever you'd like it to be.
Commissioner McGowan.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. So if I'm the public, I'm trying to figure out, how we make this as easy as possible for someone who looks at the agenda and then tries to find the documents that are related to our agenda. I'm sorry, I have a barking dog here too. And for me, the easiest way to enter that system and find the documents related to the agenda is the commission hearing portfolio. So moving forward, is there going to be a way maybe that people maybe directly from the agenda can click on a link and then it will take them directly to the e-filing system and they can find those documents? Is the public going to have access to the e-filing system? Sorry, so I'm just trying to figure out from a transparency perspective and an ease of getting to the documents, what that's going to look like from our website.
Absolutely. The short answer to your question is yes and no. There's not going to be one single link where a member of the public can click and then access a particular docket, but there will be two different ways for members of the public to find information contained within the e-filing system. And that is going to depend on their choice of registration. whether or not they want to register as a user within the e-filing system, or if they want to search and find documents within what we refer to as the PAV, which is short for the public access viewer. Anyone, anywhere can access the information within the PAV without being a registered user. And so it just depends on how much information they have, how they choose to search. If they have a docket number, let's say they got a notice of hearing in the mail. If they have a docket number, that's a big help. But if they want to just go in and search by Noble or Extraction or Kerr-McGee, they can put in certain search words and have that information come back to them, and then maybe they can narrow it down from there. But if they have a specific docket number, they can see all of the information that you as commissioners can see and I as a hearing officer can see. And the reason why my answer was yes and no is because both of those, the public access viewer as well as the e-filing system, do have links from our website. So they can go to our website, find those the portals to those two platforms and go from there. But they need some type of information, even if it's just an operator number. And that's a way that they can ultimately get to see everything contained within a particular docket. I hope that answers your question.
Commissioner McGowan, then Commissioner Messner.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. So thank you. Maybe at a future meeting, we can talk about what future agenda is going to look like and the ease of which someone will be able to look at the agenda and then figure out how to navigate our website to find what's being discussed on the agenda and the documents related to it. Because I have been cheating and using the commission hearing portfolio to find documents that I want to read. And so knowing that I'm going to have to switch to the new e-filing system and find things, if it, it has to be pretty clear and easy for everybody from my point of view. And so I just want to make sure that we're setting the system up for people to succeed and it feels intuitive.
Absolutely. And I wouldn't describe it as cheating because as we have discussed in the past, as of today, January 13th, we currently exist in two separate worlds. The old world of pre-e-filing, and we are also currently processing matters that are new to the e-filing system. And so it is difficult to change those hats and go back and forth. That being said, we have had, as a hearings unit, we have had discussions with Director Murphy about rolling out some training that's sort of akin to the operator training you've seen occurring so far this month. We are going to do that same training for what we just described as, we describe it as members of the bar. We call it the bar that practices before us, but it's really meant for anyone, including commissioners and members of the public and anyone who wants to attend. We'll publicize that information as we get those trainings put together. And we have also been working very hard in the background to finalize our hearings guidebook, which is sort of an overview that walks people through in fairly broad terms, as well as permitting manager Jane Stanzik has been instrumental in putting together a e-filing guidebook. So we have not only just an overview of the hearings process and how applications work their way through, but we also have a guide that specifically addresses the e-filing system in PDF form with images and little text boxes and descriptions. So we've sort of bled a little bit into, that's a little bit of a preview here, but we do have some fairly stout trainings coming.
Yeah, and you can see that the user guidebook is right here on the hearings page.
Thank you both. Commissioner Messner.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. So just so I'm clear and understand kind of the process here, but as we're moving forward as commissioners and are needing to review information that would currently be contained in a portfolio in the future would be in the e-filing system. As we look at the agenda and start to review our necessary documentation and preparation for our hearings, are we going to have to type in docket numbers into a search in order to find it, or is it going to be hyperlinked in some sort of format so that we can go directly to the information that we're going to need in order to review?
That's a good question, Commissioner. We have been able to set up certain filters within the e-filing system. One of those filters is going to be dockets that are being submitted to the commission for their consideration at the next upcoming hearing. And so as commissioners, you will be provided with basically a link that will say, here are all of the dockets that are on the agenda for the next scheduled hearing. And those dockets, you'll just be able to click on a link and it'll take you right into the particular matter. When you we'll address all of this when we get into the training, but when you open up, and I don't have one in front of me, but when you open up a docket, it's going to have the entire record in front of you right there in one consolidated place. Everything from the application through the permitting review, the engineering review, the OGLA review, the hearing officer recommendation, everything will be there, everything. And it'll be in one consolidated place, and it'll just be links you can click on and open documents one by one.
Great. Thank you very much. Appreciate that.
You're welcome.
Thank you, Mr. Peskin. Commissioner Nanjapa?
Thank you, Mr. Chair, and thank you so much, Ms. Adamczyk and Mr. Peskin, for all the information that you've been sharing. It's really helpful. You know, one thing kind of along the lines of what Commissioner McGowan was saying is, I know when I first started and was kind of navigating the website and looking for things, some of the items that at least I would think would be hearing associated were not, you know, in that hearings page, for example, the YouTube link, and, you know, to look for that past hearings. And so I'm wondering, or I just wanted to know if there's been some consideration of having more of like another maybe sort of submenu, the way you have the navigation at the top, on the top bar, you know, in a certain category under regulation, you've got the hearings and all these other categories, but maybe under hearings, they'd be, you know, some of these other links, just again, for ease of navigation, to be able to find that sort of information. And related to what Commissioner McGowan was saying, if there was a way to also make it really easy for the public to find those associated documents in that way, that would just be, I think that could be really useful, but I was curious if you guys have already discussed that or are considering something like that.
Thank you, Chair. From a hearings perspective, Commissioner Nanjapa, we have not had those discussions. It's an excellent idea. It's a good suggestion. I'm all in favor of intuitive processes and making things easy to find. I certainly think that it makes sense to have a document. One of the things that I refer to, just something that helps me navigate to these hearings, is even though I have an invitation on my calendar, I find it personally easiest to just go to our homepage, and there it is right there. There's that little link with the Zoom link, and then there's the agenda you can click on, and then the Zoom link is embedded within the agenda. But I don't see why we could not include hyperlinks to the e-filing system and to the public access viewer within that PDF that houses all of the agenda and hearing information. That's something that I am personally open to. I don't want to speak. I'm not trying to add anything to Chris Eisinger's plate or any of our technical folks who I don't know how easy that would be, but from my ignorant view, it seems like it wouldn't be that difficult to accomplish, and certainly putting those links in more than one place, like our homepage, and then embedded underneath the hearings tab, it makes sense to me. And we are certainly willing to move in any direction the commissioners would like us to with regard to transparency and ease of use.
Thank you, Mr. Peskin. I think that all sounds good. I know we're all kind of in transition with these various, you know, different systems that are also changing. And just as another note there, another thing that I thought was a little bit difficult to find was where to submit public comment. Again, in my mind, when I was looking at the website at the beginning, that was associated with hearings, but I think it's linked somewhere else. But just more to the point that you just noted, that I think redundancy in websites is really useful in terms of redundant links, in different places that lead you to the same information. So kind of thinking about where somebody might look for something and then placing it there, if that's possible, or some other sort of centralized menu or portal. But yeah, those are just thoughts. Again, trust you all to think about what's going to work best. But those were just things that I noted when I was navigating the website in the early days.
Chair Robbins, if I could respond.
Yeah, please.
Commissioner Nanjapa, those are excellent points. And Ms. Adamczyk touched on this. The website, it's a sword that cuts both ways. It has so much information on it that it's incredibly helpful, but I have not found the ends of it yet. And so, yes, I completely agree. And so I think that it can be, I think it could be more useful to have that redundancy, because if the information only exists in one singular place, a person, unless they find that little pot of gold at the end of the rainbow, they're out of luck. And so things can get buried, absolutely, because there is so much data and information and things that are meant to be helpful, but you can sometimes feel like you're searching for the needle in the haystack.
Thank you, Mr. Peskin. Appreciate that. I think this is going to be a to be continued discussion as we move into this new world. But appreciate the work on that. And for Deputy Director Cuthbertson, I think that some of the direction you're hearing from Commission is exactly what you guys are doing, which is let's make sure that we develop up informational guidelines so that the rest of the world can move with us appropriately into new permitting regime and with still kind of that full-on transparent approach that we have taken with rulemaking and that we are undertaking at Commission. I think that's really important. So great. Ms. Adamczyk, if you want to stop sharing your screen, I think that we are, there you go. Thank you very much.
Yeah.
And I believe that actually Mr. Cuthbertson is up next on our agenda.
Thank you very much, Chair Robbins and Commissioners. Can you see my screen?
We can. Mm-hmm.
So I'm Scott Cuthbertson, Deputy Director of Operations. I'm going to provide you an update regarding the Mark Martinez and Joey Irwin Memorial Projects, Public Projects Fund today. COGCC issued the largest ever NOAV penalty of $18.25 million in March of last year in response to alleged rule violations that resulted in an explosion at the Firestone, Colorado home of Mark and Aaron Martinez, causing the deaths of Mark Martinez and Joey Irwin and significant injuries to Ms. Martinez and the destruction of their home. Kerr-McGee, the operator of the involved well at the time of the explosion, agreed to an administrative order by consent, which the Commission approved in April of last year. COGCC rules 523.f allows an operator to offset penalties by performing one or more public projects. The key requirements of that rule is that the project has to be something the Commission deems appropriate and is something the operator has no other legal requirement to perform. The order for this issue did identify that $17.25 million of the $18.25 million penalty would be used to establish the Mark Martinez and Joey Irwin Memorial Public Project Fund. The order also identified 8 specific projects at an estimated cost of about $8.5 million, and then directed that the balance of that fund be used to fund additional projects in the years 2021 through 2024. This is a really busy slide, but I was trying to find some way to provide an overall summary and as well as a status. This page is actually published. There is a link that I can provide you if you'd like to track the progress of this fund. And so these are the 8 projects that I just want to walk through really quickly. Once the administrative order by consent was approved, COGCC and CDPHE staff worked to finalize the projects identified by the order. Once finalized, the process outlined by the order required COGC to formally notify Cuthbertson and request them to fund the project. Our first request was sent August 6th of 2020. And I would just like to acknowledge that Cuthbertson has been very responsive to requests to release funds for the projects. And as you can see, all but $360,000 of the $8.5 million in the original project suite have now been funded. And I think that's really a significant accomplishment, and I'm glad to be able to report that. So the first project, and these are projects, they're numbered by the way they're identified in the order. And speaking back to Ms. Adamczyk's presentation, if you want to see the order, you can go to the website, you can click on regulation, and then orders. And then in the order number, just enter the number 709, and anything associated with that number will pop up, and then you will see the administrative order 1V709 that's associated with this project, and you can look at the information in that order if you'd like. So the projects were identified in paragraph 3 of that order, so that's why they're numbered 3A through 3I. Project 3A, aerial surveys, is one of the projects that have been managed by CDPHE. And I do want to just express our appreciation to Director Putnam, Environmental Programs Operational Manager Deborah Nelson, and a number of other CDPHE employees, including Gordon Pierce, Daniel Bond, Garrison Kaufman, Mark McMillan, and Chris LaPlante, and Sean Hackett. I hope I didn't forget anybody. We've had a number of people that have been very helpful in implementing these significant public projects, and I appreciate their assistance. Aerial surveys is both the proven and developing technology to identify oil and gas related leaks and emissions. This project involved the University of Arizona, the Methane Emissions Technology Evaluation Center at Colorado State University, and Scientific Aviation. And the Scientific Aviation project has been completely defined. We're just waiting on an invoice from Scientific Aviation to be able to forward that request to fund that project to Cuthbertson. Another project coordinated by CDPHE was the purchase of a second mobile air monitoring van, including $500,000 to operate the van for 2 years. You'll note that this project came in approximately $150,000 under the estimated budget. And so that allowed us to do to make some changes to another project that I'll talk about here in just a second. Project 3C is purchased some infrared cameras from FLIR for both COGCC and CDPHE inspectors to use during their normal field inspections. Infrared cameras can detect gas plumes that can't be seen with either normal wavelength light or cameras or the naked eye. So they are very useful in allowing inspectors to identify leaks and emissions that need to be addressed during inspections. The fourth project funds the University of Chicago Energy and Environment Lab at CDPHE, and they'll be researching advancements in satellite and remote sensing technology so that technology enables us to provide some 24/7 type monitoring rather than just when the inspector's in the field. So I think that's a significant technological advancement that is certainly worth some additional research and assistance. Similarly, Project 3E funds additional research at the CSU Methane Emissions Technology Evaluation Center to develop leak detection technologies for underground flow lines. Underground, those emissions disperse as they migrate through the soil, and sometimes are harder to detect from drive-by or from visual inspection. So I look forward to the results of that research. Project 3F funded the purchase of about $80,000 of gas detection and metering equipment used by COGCC in its routine inspections of oil and gas facilities. It also funded the purchase of 4 new trailer-mounted air monitoring stations that will enable COGCC to better understand the level and makeup of fugitive emissions around oil and gas facilities. This project ended up costing about $100,000 more than estimated. So it was good that the van came in under budget. We were able to accommodate that design change. As we got into the final design of this project, we realized that it would be much better if we housed this monitoring equipment in a fully enclosed, self-contained trailer mounted van for security and just for operational practicalities. And so that project came in about $100,000 more than we initially expected, just because of the cost of the trailers. Similar to Project 3F, Project 3G spent about $40,000 to update COGCC's remote methane leak detectors for our environmental unit. The 8th project was a $50,000 donation to the Frederick Firestone Fire Protection District to help offset their NTSB-related investigation costs. And Project 3I is simply the balance of the funds that have been set aside for projects in the years 2021 through 2024. And you'll see that with $8 million worth of estimated projects, we were only off by about 80 grand. We came in 80 grand under budget from the estimated costs. And so that concludes my fairly concise summary. I'm completely willing to take questions if anyone has any.
Thank you, Deputy Director Cuthbertson. Great work here to see how much has been accomplished in the 9 months or so since receipt of the AOC. So one sort of clarifying question, a lot of these are in green and it's donation received. Are they accomplished? Like, for instance, does CDPHE have the mobile air monitoring van, or is that still in process? Similarly with the imaging cameras, et cetera, is all of that finalized, or are we in the process of using the funds to finalize the various aspects?
So 3F through 3H have all been received and are being used. 3E, the METEC study is underway. It's had a couple of months of oversight and process, so it is underway. The University of Chicago lab at CDPHE is not yet up and running, but very close. The cameras in 3C have all been purchased and deployed by both CDPHE and COGCC. And the air monitoring van is scheduled for delivery in the spring, early in the spring, as well as the aerial surveys. They will take place in early spring, in spring and early summer. So a significant number of the projects have been completely implemented.
That's excellent. We see sort of tangible on the ground results from the fund, which is exactly what we wanted to see, is the use of these funds in a manner to offset the issues that developed that resulted in the AOC. So that's great work, great to hear. I know that the 2 university studies will be ongoing, and so that's great to hear as well. So great, thank you very much for that. Do other commissioners have questions for Deputy Director Cuthbertson? Commissioner Putnam, and then Commissioner McGowan.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. And I really wanted to first start with thanking Scott for his efforts to make all this happen and to work with my team over at CDPHE on the efforts. It's complicated to scope all these things, work through all the contracting and procurement and other issues that have to be worked through. And it's been really good to have that support and appreciate the help in making this possible. really also want to focus on some of your last comments there, Mr. Chairman, that I think these projects really lay the foundation arising from the tragedy, and I wish that we didn't have to have that tragedy, but to the extent that it happened, I believe that these projects lay the foundation for improving both safety and health for Coloradans. All of our work needs to be based on the best information, the best science, and this really moves the ball in a very significant way. To meet that process, we are preparing through the Colorado Air Quality Enterprise that was authorized by the legislature to pick up some of these efforts. In the long term, we need this level of investment to achieve, the very strong objectives that were laid out by the legislature and Governor Polis. And along with your mission change rulemakings, the rulemakings at AQCC, this strong basis and monitoring, detection, science will get us where we want to go. So I want to thank everybody involved, including the people who are involved in the enforcement process, certainly the family of those who were lost, who really provided the inspiration to make sure that this would not happen again and that we're going to be investing in the future. So happy to take any questions. We're excited certainly that those items in 3C are out in the field and being used every day right now. We're really excited to get that monitoring van and get the other pieces out in the field and the data available to both of our teams and then to the public more generally, so that we can move forward as a state.
Thank you, Commissioner Putnam. Agree 100% with your comments. Other questions from commissioners? Commissioner McGowan, then Commissioner Nanjapa.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. And I echo everything that Commissioner Putnam just said. I know that a lot of this work that we're doing feeds into a lot of what we heard during testimony about the importance of data and having good data and knowing what's happening around oil and gas operations. I guess my question is, for the remaining $8.6 million, how will those projects be determined, and what role does the affected community play that was affected by the violation in the first place, and or community play in general when we have a situation where an operator is willing to use part of their violation for public benefit? What role does the public play?
Deputy Director Cuthbertson, and I can also try to answer as well. Go ahead.
Thank you, Commissioner McGowan and Chair. So the order does direct that about half of the public project fund be set aside for future project development for the very reasons that you identify, so that there is an opportunity for contemplation and involvement by any who want to be involved. The process laid out in the order is that this commission and Kerr-McGee simply need to agree that the project presented for consideration meets the intention of the fund, and that would begin with the compilation of the project, the idea, the presentation of the project to this commission and its approval of the project to proceed under this fund. And then we would request Kerr-McGee's approval or consensus that this project meets the terms of the fund from their perspective, and request them to fund the project. So part of the intention of this fund was to enable, was both to initiate progress, right, by identifying some readily available projects that we really believed strongly in benefiting the cause of the fund, but also leaving half the fund available to the commission and CDPHE to collaboratively develop in these next 3 or 4 years.
And of course, Commissioner McGowan, because it would be us approving the use of the funds, that would be through a public process, and we'd have the public involved in the hearing on whether to approve or not approve any proposed project. Commissioner Nanjapa?
Thank you, Mr. Chair, and thanks to Commissioner McGowan. I appreciate that was a particular question that I had as well, was the process for determining the other funds. The other question I had was related to 3A, just more my own curiosity of sort of the technology and how this all works. Is there information somewhere that I could find about how the aerial surveys will be able to identify that, or what it's looking for and what technologies are involved?
Deputy Director Cuthbertson, please.
Thank you, Chair. I do have a link to the proposal that I can make available. I should have included that in my presentation, but I will send you all a link to that proposal, and it identifies sort of the technology, the use of the technology, how it works, and we can kind of go from there.
Great, thank you. Commissioner Putnam?
Thank you, Mr. Chair, and thank you, Commissioner Nanjapa and Mr. Cuthbertson for that response. One thing happy to offer is if there'd be interest in the commission having a presentation from the technical folks working on that. Agree with Scott that going through that proposal is really helpful. But it's also, I think, helpful to hear directly from some of the technical folks who are working on it. As Mr. Cuthbertson pointed out, this has been used elsewhere, and it's both proven and proving itself to be more useful and getting better over time, and would be, I think, good background for the commission. And Scott, Sean, or I can help set that up if that's of interest on a future agenda.
And speaking for the commission, I think that is of interest to us, and so we would appreciate and relish the opportunity to have CDPHE speak to us from a technical perspective.
There's a lot of really cool slides and pictures, especially from NASA. Who doesn't like to look at cool stuff from NASA?
Absolutely. Great. Other questions for Deputy Director Cuthbertson on the report relative to the Mark Martinez and Joey Irwin Memorial Public Projects Fund? Great. Thank you, Scott. Appreciate the report. Great work there. Great to see the cause there advanced as it is.
Thank you.
With that, we are to consent agenda, and that is just the one matter involving Group A Edge Energy. The extraction matter is not on the agenda as it has been continued. Does anybody have questions, or do we have a motion? Commissioner Gonzalez?
I'll motion to approve the consent agenda.
Second.
I have a motion and a second. Is there further discussion? Seeing Commissioner Messner, are you?
I was just preparing to vote.
Great. Okay. Seeing no discussion, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? Motion carries. We are to the agenda item, which is commissioner comments. Do commissioners have comments for the general good?
Mr. Chair.
Commissioner Nanjapa and then Commissioner Messner.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Yeah, so I just wanted to note, I just really appreciated the overview of the website, and again, wanted to thank Commissioner Gonzalez for helping to pull that together. And I hope my comments or suggestions didn't come off as critical. I know there is a huge amount of information that's being served up on that website, and really appreciate all the thought that's gone into it so far. Just trying to, always think of ways that we can, make things a little bit better. And if there's ways that we can help with that, happy to do that. But just wanted to thank everybody involved in that. It's a huge lift, and especially with these different transitions coming up. So thanks for all the work going on behind the scenes.
Commissioner Messner.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I just want to acknowledge that, this is a big week with the rollout of the mission change permitting processes and all the associated work that went on to make this happen on Friday. And so just a giant thanks to everyone that's been involved with that process. I mean, I can't get my head around the amount of work that's been done in order to be able to continue to develop the forms and the guidance and the necessary information in order to be able to make this shift on Friday to a new permitting system. And so just a big thank you for that, and for everyone moving forward. I think we just need to give each other grace as we continue to work through the inevitable bugs that will happen as we roll out this new permitting system. But I'm confident that it will be successful. So thank you to everyone who's worked on that.
Agreed. Me too. Thank you. Scott, tell staff the commission is just looking with, it's wonderful to see, and doing great work there. In discussions that I've had with stakeholders, they're appreciative as well. So 2021 is going to be a big year, starting on Friday.
Thank you. And on behalf of the staff, we have a number of people that are working 18/7 plus to implement these rules, and I appreciate their effort and their commitment to consistent excellence as they do their jobs and serve this commission. It's a privilege to be a part of.
Yeah, cheers. Other comments? Commissioner Putnam.
Thank you, Mr. Chair, and want to congratulate staff and thank staff for all the hard work that they've been doing preparing for that transition, as well as the work of Sean Hackett and other folks who are helping out to prepare on the consultation elements of that. Want to flag two other quick items, kind of adding to the nature of this historic week. The first is that we're anticipating that the final version of the greenhouse gas reduction roadmap will also be coming out later this week. That reflects a lot of work, both on the part of staff, but also the community, and really trying to capture a great outpouring of comments and great ideas that we heard from the community. So that will be an important document as we transition into further implementation of those pieces. And as part of that, I think as we've discussed in the past, the Air Pollution Control Division started a stakeholder process in November for the next big round of AQCC rulemaking. That's underway right now, active discussion with a full range of stakeholders for a rulemaking that will happen towards the end of this year, 2021, and encourage everybody to be involved and appreciate engagement from COGCC on that rulemaking. In addition, we have one piece that was part of the state implementation plan for ozone that was broken out of the hearing that we just held last month and is set for hearing next month in front of the AQCC. And that relates specifically to pneumatic controllers in the oil and gas sector, an area that was specifically called out in 181 and has been an area of interest and concern, from the community, from industry for a while. So excited about the opportunity to make some additional progress in minimizing emissions from that sector as well.
Thank you for that update, Commissioner Putnam. Great work there on behalf of your team. Any further thoughts, comments? We've made it through our agenda. And with that, we would look to see a motion to adjourn, and we'll get back together next week.
So moved.
Second.
Thanks, guys. All right, all those in favor to adjourn signify by saying aye. Aye. Great. Everybody stay safe, and we'll see you next week.
Thanks, everybody.